last year in my speech at the Hall of Fame. Perception is reality. And, you know, I think sometimes he may have forgotten that, but it's not that circus, you know, carny kind of thing anymore. It is a big, huge business. Don't let what we're doing at night get in the way of business. I mean, that was a
What if the man who haunted every arena for 35 years, whose name alone sent chills down your spine, finally says, "I've had enough of you"? In a world where most wrestlers cross paths with their promoters, file lawsuits, and then cash in, The Undertaker's decade-long partnership with Vince McMahon has been nothing short of a corporate anomaly. Yet behind that seemingly unbreakable bond lies a simmering resentment that has only now reached a boiling point. Today, we peel back the layers of this iconic relationship, diving into the genesis of the Undertaker persona, the fierce Monday Night Wars, the creative clashes of the Attitude Era, and the recent legal and ethical storms that have battered McMahon's empire. From a backstage friendship that served as McMahon's conscience, to the moment those ties were tested by allegations that shake the very foundation of the business, we'll explore why the dead man, the embodiment of loyalty, now declares war on the chairman. Strap in. This is the untold story of why The Undertaker finally hates Vince McMahon. In the world of professional wrestling, a place born from carnival thrills and a constantly shifting workforce, a bond has emerged that seems almost impossible to understand. 35 years of partnership between Mark William Calloway, known to millions as The Undertaker, and Vincent Kennedy McMahon, the chairman of the world's biggest wrestling promotion, defy the usual script. While most performers in the industry drift from one contract to another, fighting legal battles and reuniting only for a paycheck, Calloway and McMahon have maintained an unbroken thread of loyalty that has become a quiet undercurrent of the company's history. The seed of this relationship was planted in a moment of doubt. In 1990, Calloway was a journeyman in World Championship Wrestling, wrestling under the name Mean Mark Callis. His performances were ordinary, and his prospects in the leading promotion were bleak. He had heard whispers of a chance to join the World Wrestling Federation, but the first glimpse of his talent was met with resistance. When a bout with Lex Luger at the Great American Bash left him with a dislocated hip, Calloway nonetheless stepped into the ring, hoping to secure a meeting with McMahon. Yet the footage that McMahon reviewed failed to spark anything beyond the impression of a tall, lanky athlete who fit the generic basketball player stereotype McMahon disliked. The initial assessment was blunt. There was nothing special about him. It was not the talent that caught McMahon's eye, but the idea he could conjure in his mind. The Undertaker was a character conceived by McMahon himself, a silent, grim reaper-like figure, a villain who could counter the hero Hulk Hogan with a stoic, almost untouchable presence. The Undertaker was McMahon's intellectual property, a vessel for a story that required a performer who could submerge his own identity into the mask of the gimmick. When Calloway finally debuted the character at Survivor Series 1990, his stoicism and physicality validated McMahon's vision, and the partnership began in earnest. The mid-1990s brought a storm to the wrestling world, the Monday Night Wars. WCW, backed by a television mogul, lured away key WWF talents with lucrative offers. For a period when the company's survival hung in the balance, Calloway's loyalty became a lifeline. He was courted by WCW, but he stayed, citing a personal debt to McMahon for giving him the chance that others had dismissed. His choice was not merely contractual, it was a statement of honor. Within the backstage community, Calloway emerged as a stabilizing presence, leading a group of wrestlers who acted as a counterweight to the more volatile factions. WWE's ability to navigate internal turmoil hinged on a figure who could keep egos in check and carry the creative torch when others were tempted to stray. Even as WWE shifted toward edgier content in the late 1990s, Calloway remained a steady hand. The creative peak, and perhaps the lowest point, of his and McMahon's collaboration unfolded during the Attitude Era. In early 1999, Undertaker became the leader of a cultish group known as the Ministry of Darkness. The storyline thrusts the dark character into a direct confrontation with McMahon's family. Undertaker tormented McMahon's wife, burned his prized teddy bear, and, most shockingly, kidnapped his daughter Stephanie. The narrative premise was that Undertaker was serving a mysterious higher power, a force beyond himself. The audience was left to wonder whether this was a new arrival, a returning legend, or something else entirely. When the truth was finally unveiled on a Raw episode, the reveal shocked fans and underscored McMahon's absolute control over the narrative. In that moment, the higher power was disclosed to be none other than McMahon himself, speaking in a new persona, the same voice that had guided the story from the beginning. Critics labeled the storyline a creative misfire, citing its convoluted logic. Yet it was a clear demonstration of McMahon's willingness to bend his own character to service larger business aims. In doing so, he required Calloway to play a subservient role, sacrificing the mystique of The Undertaker for the sake of the overarching storyline that generated the most revenue. Throughout these episodes, Calloway's role as vessel, mentor, and stabilizer remained unchanged. He was the conduit through which McMahon's ideas flowed, the figure who could embody the darkest aspects of the WWE Universe while maintaining the illusion of the scripted world. The relationship grew beyond employer and employee. It became a mutual, if sometimes tense, partnership, where trust and respect were the only currencies that mattered. This narrative arc illustrates how a single character can become a linchpin in a larger corporate ecosystem. The Undertaker was not merely a draw. He was the conscience, the anchor, the stabilizing force that allowed McMahon to experiment, to pivot, and to keep the company afloat in the most volatile periods. In the years that followed, the bond remained unbroken, a quiet testament to a partnership that survived the inevitable ups and downs of a business built on spectacle and improvisation. The saga of The Undertaker's relationship with Vince McMahon had long been framed as a corporate partnership. But as the years unfolded, the lines between employer, mentor, and surrogate father blurred into something that resembled a familial bond.
From Vince, because Vince, regardless of what anybody thinks, deep in his heart, he's one of the boys. He really is. And he has that.
Even in retirement, the narrative that McMahon was a paternal figure persisted, a testament to the power of that dynamic in shaping Mark Calloway's life. When WrestleMania 30X rolled around in 2014, the event was more than a spectacle. It was a cultural moment that redefined the public's perception of McMahon's role. The ring became a stage where McMahon's image shifted from a faceless corporate executive to a visible father figure, a man who could be seen walking alongside the towering figure of The Undertaker. This transition was marked by a scene that many will never forget. McMahon standing on the sidelines, watching as Calloway's hand was raised. The arena erupting in cheers, yet a quiet gravity that only a parent could command. The audience sensed that the show's success hinged on this paternal presence, and the narrative was that McMahon's emotional investment in Calloway was no longer a plot device, but a genuine human connection. Yet even as the public began to see this fatherly dimension, the business decisions still carried the weight of corporate strategy. The moment that would become one of the most talked about moments in wrestling history arrived when the question of ending The Undertaker's legendary streak was posed. For 21 consecutive WrestleManias, The Undertaker had remained undefeated. That streak was not just a narrative, it was a brand, an asset that could command higher ticket sales and more compelling storytelling. The decision to finally end it had to be made in the heart of the company, and Vince McMahon was the one who called the final toll. Calloway's hesitation was palpable. He expressed that perhaps the honor of ending the streak could belong to someone like Roman Reigns, a rising star who could carry that mantle forward. Yet McMahon's insistence was unwavering. Calloway, with his characteristic pragmatism, ultimately acquiesced, telling himself, "It's your show, it's your call." The choice was not about loss or victory. It was about acknowledging the hierarchy that had defined their relationship since the early days of the Monday Night Wars. Even at that point, The Undertaker was not the one deciding the terms of his legacy. He was executing the will of the man who had built the house. The match itself was a masterclass in drama. In the days after, Calloway suffered a severe concussion. He collapsed backstage, the adrenaline of the match still pulsing in his veins, and was rushed to a New Orleans hospital. In a moment that no one had ever imagined, McMahon abandoned the entire event. He left the arena with Calloway, a decision that echoed through the WWE ecosystem. The absence of the guerrilla position at the broadcast was felt like a battlefield commander walking away from the front lines. It was an unprecedented breach of protocol, but it sent a clear message. The well-being of The Undertaker, the pillar of the company, was paramount, and the corporate machine would bend to preserve him. Calloway's memory of that night was hazy. He admitted to having no recollection of the match or the aftermath. The reliance on McMahon and his wife, Michelle McCool, to navigate the crisis underscored the intimacy that had already begun to take root. When his father passed, Calloway turned to McMahon for a substitute fatherly presence, and the bond grew stronger. The hospital incident became a pivotal moment that solidified the father figure narrative. In the twilight years that followed WrestleMania 30X, the dynamic between the two entered a new phase. Calloway's physical decline was a matter of public record. The documentary, Undertaker Revealed, captured the moments that would become emblematic: the retirement, the crying Vince meme, the Hall of Fame induction. McMahon's presence during these events was a testament to his ongoing role in Calloway's life. Yet the relationship was tested. The corporate environment, now under the TKO umbrella, began to infiltrate Calloway's independent projects. His podcast, 6 Feet Under, launched as a platform for his own voice, began to feel the weight of corporate influence. The co-host, Matt, was replaced by Michelle McCool, an act that suggested a subtle but unmistakable WWE imprint on what was meant to be a personal venture. These changes in the backstage and public spheres revealed a pattern. Calloway's loyalty remained unbroken, regardless of the moral or legal clouds that hovered over McMahon. In January 2024, when the Janelle Grant lawsuit accused McMahon of trafficking and led to his resignation, Calloway did not respond. He remained silent, a silent supporter, refusing to join the chorus of condemnation. He later spoke publicly, using the phrase "glass houses," defending his friendship and refusing to judge. He argued that loyalty, which had spanned decades, transcended the immediate moral outrage. The same loyalty that had kept The Undertaker's hand raised in 1999 was now shielding him from the sharpest public backlash. The corporate takeover of 6 Feet Under in early 2025 added another layer of complexity. While the content of the show remained, the very structure of the platform had shifted. Michelle McCool's presence on the podcast, as opposed to the original co-host Matt, suggested that Calloway's platform was now within the WWE corporate ecosystem. It raises questions about free speech, but Calloway's defense of McMahon remained personal and unwavering. His wait-and-see stance, previously evident when he stayed for the SEC settlement in January 2025, continued unabated. In February 2025, The Undertaker and McMahon appeared together at Super Bowl LIX in New Orleans, a venue that had once again become a place where the wrestling world confronted McMahon's damaged image. The scene was striking. Calloway, in his iconic black, standing beside McMahon, a frail but determined man. The public backlash was immediate, yet Calloway's presence was a powerful endorsement. He seemed to act as a human shield, a visible testament that his bond with McMahon could weather even the most unforgiving storms. Through all these moments, the hospital incident, the concussion, the Hall of Fame induction, the crying Vince meme, the corporate infiltration of his podcast, and the Super Bowl appearance, one thing remained consistent. The Undertaker's loyalty to Vince McMahon was absolute. Each event reinforced a narrative that was not merely a business transaction, but an unbreakable bond that had survived bankruptcy threats, scandal, and legal battles. The Undertaker's relationship with McMahon has been the spine of modern professional wrestling history, an ever-unfolding story that shows how a man's legacy can be shaped by another's unwavering influence.
That was the only thing that I don't get in trouble. Don't embarrass us. Don't be.
The late 1990s were a battleground of styles, with WWE's golden era winding down and a new, edgier era on the brink. In that space, Mark Calloway, then a lanky, red-haired mid-carder known as Mean Mark Callis, was already feeling the sting of being overlooked. His manager in WCW, Paul Heyman, saw the potential, but bookers would not. When Ole Anderson told him that no one is ever going to pay money to watch you wrestle, the itch for something bigger settled into his bones. It was Vince McMahon who could have offered that bigger stage. Yet the first meeting between the two was anything but smooth. McMahon's infamous aesthetic preference for towering, muscular wrestlers, Warrior, Hogan, Hercules, meant that the lanky Calloway didn't fit the tall basketball player mold. That first meeting was canceled, a sign that Calloway wasn't yet a chosen one. He had to prove his worth in a room that had already decided not to trust him. That proving ground came in the form of a new character that would become The Undertaker. The concept demanded a dead-center persona, slow, emotionless, and essentially a zombie walking into the ring. Vince's micromanagement of the early days was relentless. He dictated The Undertaker's zombie walk, the way his footsteps should sound like a funeral march, and the low, gravelly timbre of the voice that would echo through arenas. The early training was brutal. The Undertaker had to learn to sell the silence, to keep the audience on the edge of their seats while delivering the same routine in any match. In that first chapter, Calloway was the student, and McMahon the director. Their relationship began as a transactional agreement, but was already hinting at a bond that would become deeply personal. When Monday Night Wrestling launched in 1995, the two giants, WWF and WCW, engaged in a week-long war. WCW could offer huge money to top stars. Kevin Nash and Scott Hall left for cash. Bret Hart was pushed into a controversial Montreal screwjob, and yet The Undertaker stayed. Calloway's reasoning was simple but profound. Wrestlers are notoriously poor savers, and stability was more valuable than quick cash. WWF had a proven formula for making a character a monster, and Vince's willingness to protect the creative vision gave The Undertaker a platform that WCW could not match. The Undertaker's loyalty to WWF during this time was an investment in longevity rather than a sprint. Behind the curtains, the Bone Street crew, Yokozuna, The Godfather, Savio Vega, and others formed a backstage fraternity. The BSK tattoo on Calloway's stomach became a badge of belonging. He served as the judge of the mock wrestler's court, a way to settle backstage disputes without interference for management. This arrangement highlighted how Vince relied on The Undertaker not just for in-ring work, but also as a cultural anchor who could keep order and reinforce the loyalty narrative. It was a small but essential piece of the larger picture, a way to keep the industry's fragile ecosystems from tearing apart. The corporate ministry took a dramatic turn with the higher power storyline. The Undertaker was forced to obey the enigmatic figure who controlled WWE's direction. Calloway's acceptance of the higher power, without questioning the motives, illustrated a kind of obedience born out of trust. Vince's manipulation was evident. He would send The Undertaker to the hospital for a sudden collapse, as if he were an old friend who needed help, rather than a victim of a corporate juggernaut. This moment of vulnerability, when Vince left the ring for a real-world medical emergency, blurred the lines between love and guilt. Entering the 2010s, The Undertaker's streak became a revenue engine. The number of consecutive victories, each a promise to the fans, was monetized through merchandise, pay-per-view buys, and brand positioning. Vince protected The Undertaker's health to ensure the streak's continuity. The decision to end the streak in 2014 was a cruel twist. Calloway, without even remembering the night he lost the most prized possession, watched the dust settle. He lost a piece of himself, a tragedy that echoed in his own mind, a memory that faded as abruptly as the ring lights dimmed. The hospital visit that followed was less about medical treatment and more a sobering moment of guilt for Vince and love for a loyal soldier who had been pushed too far. The 2020s introduced a different kind of media moment. The crying Vince meme, a viral snapshot of McMahon's unexpected tears at a ceremony, became a cultural touchstone. It reminded everyone that The Undertaker was the one constant when the rest of the roster began to crumble or take legal action. The meme's emotional core, crying, the ultimate loss of control, highlighted what Vince valued most: loyalty. Calloway's public defense of McMahon, citing the glass houses philosophy that everyone has skeletons, reinforced the idea that the ring's politics were private. The legal crisis that followed, allegations of trafficking, presented a moral quandary that The Undertaker tried to navigate with his own experience in hand. In a world where legal and moral lines were becoming ever clearer, Calloway's stance felt like the last outpost of an old-school mentality. His glass houses quote, repeated in interviews, served as a shield against judgment. He chose personal experience over the allegations. This dynamic, akin to the psychological loops seen in intense fraternities, became the fulcrum on which The Undertaker's loyalty pivoted. It was a human element, a last outlaw who fought against the notion that WWE could be a clean, modern corporation. Throughout all these years, The Undertaker's relationship with Vince McMahon has indeed been the spine of modern professional wrestling. From a rejected mid-card performer to a character built from the ground up, from backstage judge to the keeper of order, from a living legend who carried a streak to a human who defended a man under legal scrutiny, it has been a story that shows how one man's legacy can be shaped by another's unwavering influence. The Last Ride is a testament to loyalty, a reminder that sometimes the greatest enemy or ally is the same person, depending on the light. The Undertaker remains the last outlaw, the final echo of the bone-deep bond that made a monster, a legend, and a story that will be told in arenas and in documentaries for generations to come.